Hi everyone, welcome back to Art This Week, and it's the first day of spring. I'm really excited to have spring here, and look at my beautiful daffodils. This reminds me of a story. That's not a daffodil. I'm going to read that to you now, and after that we're going to do a lovely spring activity together. Keep watching.
That's Not a Daffodil by Elizabeth Honey. One day, Mr. Yilmaz from next door called in with a basket of apples and a crumpled paper bag. "What is it?" asked Tom. "It's a daffodil," said Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's an onion." "Well, let's plant it and see," said Mr. Yilmaz. So they planted the bulb with the pointy end up in a large, round terracotta pot. "There," said Mr. Yilmaz, patting it down. "That will grow into a beautiful daffodil." Tom watched the pot, but nothing happened. Nothing, nothing, nothing. The next time Mr. Yilmaz dropped by, he asked, "How's the daffodil?" "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a desert." "Then we will make it rain," said Mr. Yilmaz. So they made it rain and put it in the sun. When Mr. Yilmaz brought in a fine bunch of carrots, he asked, "How's the daffodil?" "Don't know," said Tom. "Well, let's have a look," said Mr. Yilmaz. What a lovely bunch of carrots. "Now what do you think?" asked Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a green beak." "So it is," laughed Mr. Yilmaz. From time to time, Tom measured the beak. It was growing, and while Mr. Yilmaz was away in Turkey, the green beak opened up. "How's the daffodil?" asked Mr. Yilmaz when he came home. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a hand with 5 flat fingers." "Green fingers," agreed Mr. Yilmaz. One blustery winter's day, Mr. Yilmaz blew in with a large pumpkin. "How's the daffodil, Tom?" "That's not a daffodil. That's Grandpa's hair in the wind." Mr. Yilmaz chuckled. "He needs a haircut." It was pouring with rain when Mr. Yilmaz brought in a bucket of lemons. "Ah, now we can see the bud of the daffodil," said Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a wet rocket." "To the moon?" asked Mr. Yilmaz. "To the moon," said Tom. One day Mr. Yilmaz brought his grandchildren to play, Layla and little Khan and their big bouncy dog Carabash. They were trying to catch Carabash when he bounded away and knocked the pot. "Ah!" cried little Khan. "Call the plant ambulance," said Layla. "Mr. Yilmaz!" yelled Tom. Mr. Yilmaz helped them pat the soil back in. Will it still grow? Asked Tom. I believe so, said Mr. Yilmaz. The roots have not been disturbed. Now give it a drink, Layla, and put some water in the bird bath too. In a couple of days, the daffodil wasn't floppy anymore. How's the daffodil after its little bump? Asked Mr. Yilmaz. That's not a daffodil, said Tom. That's a street light. Mr. Yilmaz smiled. Shining yellow, spring's not far away. When Tom came home from a weekend at his grandma's, he ran to look in the backyard. Mr. Yilmaz, cried Tom. Mr. Yilmaz, ask the question. How is the daffodil? Laughed Mr. Yilmaz. Quick, come and look. Oh, said Mr. Yilmaz, now is that a daffodil? Tom nodded his head. That is a daffodil, yes. But it's also a trumpet of gold. Oh, how beautiful. I love daffodils. Okay, so today, on this first day of spring, we're going to make our own spring garden. Isn't that great? And here is how we do it. Okay, so here's everything we need for today's spring artwork. We need our 2 pieces of paper from the art pack, the one with the tree and sun on it, and then there's a plain green piece as well. You need some pencils, markers, crayons, anything you need to colour it in. You'll need your glue stick and a pair of scissors as well. Okay, so first job is to start colouring in the items on the first page with the sun, the tree and the flowers. Okay, so let's work on colouring in. And just like that, I have coloured in my work today. I have taken my time. I carefully used my textures to make an outline and coloured in the smaller details with textures. And then I used pencil to colour in the bigger areas, the shading of the, sort of the more middle areas or the background areas. Okay, so now that we have taken our time, worked really carefully with our colouring, now we're going to do the same with our cutting. Now, a lot of students need to work on their cutting skills, and that's what we're focusing on today. So very, very carefully cutting out the little flowers, the tree, the clouds, and the sun. Okay, now we have all of these cut out, looking fantastic. Time to work on the background. So we're going to move these out of the way. And we are going to take our green piece of paper. Okay, the first job you're going to do is to take the top corner and bring it down and fold it so it joins up with this side in a perfect, lovely big triangle. Okay, so it meets up here perfectly. And it meets here perfectly, and we make this big triangle. That means that when we open up, we're going to have a square. So we're now going to cut along here to make this big green square. Carefully cutting along there. Now we have this lovely big green square. Okay, so now that we've folded one way, we're going to fold back the other way to make another smaller triangle. Okay, we'll open it up. Okay, And I would like you to actually have another go at folding just to make sure all the folds are nice, are really good at bending. So now we have this square broken up into 4 triangles. Now we need to take a pair of scissors and cut into just the center. You just cut to that center fold line perfectly there. Okay. Now that allows us to create this lovely scene by folding, not folding, but covering 2 at the bottom, having 2 layers of paper at the bottom, and we create this great little scene. So I'm going to put glue on this bottom side. Glue covering the bottom, and then taking this one to the side, bringing that over and covering it up, pushing down, and I have this great little sort of amphitheatre here. Now, to decorate that lovely little amphitheatre, I'm going to think about my tree. My tree needs a few folds though. I'm going to fold down that dotted line. There's a dotted line, if you can see it down the middle here. I'm going to fold that. Okay. And I'm going to fold here at the bottom so it gives us something to stand up. Okay, so now that we've folded our tree, we also just need to make a little snip up at that bottom section so we can get our tree to stand up nicely in the middle. So I'm going to put some glue on the bottom of those tabs, and we can center our tree with a slight curve in it there. Can bend that down a little bit. So now our tree is looking really good like that. Now to add my other bits and pieces, let's put a bit of glue at the bottom of the sun and stick that in there. I'm going to put a cloud. Where's this one going? This one's going to go maybe below the sun, actually, on this side. Yep. And then we've got our sun and our tree, and I'm actually going to put the glue on the front, just on the front corner there, and I'm going to stick that behind the, oh, lost him, stick him behind the sun, so it looks like the sun is sort of springing out there. Then I guess get to decorate some flowers. I can put some on the base, but I can also put them on the walls. Oh, sticky fingers. Behind our field, our flower field for spring. I love spring. Now, oh, let's get that in there. Let's have a look. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? What a beautiful spring scene for this first of spring. Well done, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon, but it's been lovely to share these lovely crafts with you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.